Okay, so first up we've got a letter. So the pattern is formal pattern. So you know that you need to be writing in slightly more formal English. And so let's have a look at the topic. On a recent holiday, you lost a valuable item. Fortunately, you have travel insurance to cover the cost of anything lost. Write a letter to the manager of your insurance company. In your letter, so then tell what you need to describe the item you lost, explain how you lost it, and then tell the insurance company what you would like them to do. At least 150 words. You don't need to write the address, but they've given you the start, dear sir or madam. Okay, so the reason this is a formal pattern is because you're writing to a company, to someone you don't know. It's the manager of your insurance company. Okay, so it's a stranger, someone you don't know, and you're making a formal sort of complaint or request. So that's why you should be using slightly more formal language, because you're talking to someone you don't know. So with English, it's obviously different to a lot of languages which have a special way of saying things to be formal. A lot of the time in English, being formal is kind of about tone. So we'll see how this candidate does. So we've got, dear sir or madam, I'm writing this letter to request the cost of a dress that I lost during my recent holiday in Thailand. Okay. So this is fine. This is a good, fine opening. I'm writing this letter to request, so that's absolutely fine. That's exactly how, if I was writing an email or a letter, I would open it. You know, to whom it may concern, dear sir or madam, I am writing this email to you to blah blah blah. So that's the perfect way that you want to start your letter or email. It sounds quite formal. To request the cost of a dress. Okay, so this is the sort of first slight issue I have with the sentence. You're not requesting. To request the cost of a dress means in English, how much is the dress? Okay, so for example, if I was buying a crate of bananas from a company, I want to know how much it costs. Hi, I'm writing to request the cost of a crate of bananas. So it's the kind of feeling is like you're asking how much it costs. So they need to add in something. So they say, I'm writing this letter to request the refund or to request the repayment of the refund of the cost of a dress. Okay, something like that, because you're saying that you want to. I'm requesting you to pay me back the cost of the dress. Okay, so I'm writing this letter to request the refund of the cost of a dress that I lost during my recent holiday in Thailand. Okay, then the sentence would be much stronger and make more sense. As it is, as in the context, I would know what you meant, but you need to have something in here, something along those lines. What are you requesting? You're not asking the cost, you're requesting the refund of the cost of the dress. Okay, so then I can see that we're moving into the details of the item. It was a red sundress with polka dots that came along with a black belt. I really like this red sundress. Vocabulary, good. Okay, you're not just saying it was a dress, you're saying it was a red sundress. Okay, sundress is quite natural English and is more specific vocabulary, like a specific type of dress that we would say. With polka dots, also good English, good description. Okay, with polka dots that came along with a black belt. My husband gave it to me as a gift for your first wedding anniversary. For whose first? For yours, as in the sir or madam that you're writing to. My husband gave it to me as a gift for your first wedding anniversary. No, this candidate means my husband gave it to me as a gift for our first, and our meaning me and my husband, or our first wedding anniversary. Everyone said I look stunning in it. So okay, so we've got sort of slight tense disagreement here. So everyone said, past tense, I look stunning in it, present. Okay, so you could either have everyone said I looked stunning in it, or you could have everyone says I look stunning in it. Okay, so you just have to check those kind of errors. So that's something that you can catch if you make sure you have time at the end of your writing to go back and reread what you've written. You can sometimes catch these kind of small errors when you read back through it. Okay, so I know this is where I sort of have a little bit of an issue with the question. You're writing to your travel insurance, and they're asking you to describe the item you lost. And So what this candidate has done is they've taken that very literally and given a literal description of what the item looked like. I mean, in reality, if I'm writing to a travel insurance company, I don't think that they need to know that it was a red sundress with polka dots, or that everyone said how beautiful you were when you wore it. I mean, that's not relevant to the travel insurance. Do you know what I mean? So if I was describing the item that I lost, I would talk about that it was a dress. I think it's relevant to talk about the fact that it has sentimental value to you. So I think the travel insurance agency doesn't actually need to know that it was a gift for your first wedding anniversary, I guess. But if you wanted to say that, you could. I think it's relevant to say your husband gave it to you as a gift for your wedding anniversary, and as a result, it has sentimental value. Okay, what do I mean by sentimental value? Like, it has emotional value to you more than what it actually costs in terms of cash or money. So it has a high sentimental value to you. So you're describing that this dress it's not just about the money, but you also lost something that was emotionally important to you. I don't particularly think it's relevant to say how beautiful you looked in the dress, especially because this is supposed to be a formal letter written to someone you don't know. So it's a little bit strange for an insurance agent to open the email and hear you talk about, I lost boots and they made my legs look amazing. So I can understand why this candidate's done it, because the question literally asks you to describe the item you lost. So, but they've taken it very literally, and this is something a lot of people do. And for me personally, because the topic and the task is to write to a manager of a travel insurance agency, instead of literally going into so much detail about what it actually looked like, talk a little bit more about the item, what it was, maybe why it was so valuable. So, or give details like that might be relevant to the travel insurance agency. Where did you buy it? Do you have the receipt that came with it? Had you registered it when you registered your travel insurance? Because when you buy travel insurance, they ask you, do you have any particularly valuable items that are coming with you? So you could say, I want to request a refund of a dress that I lost during my recent holiday in Thailand. It was a dress my husband had given to me as a gift for our first wedding anniversary, and therefore has high sentimental value to me. It was bought as a Christian Dior original, and I still retain the original packaging and receipt if needed. And it's a one-of-a-kind personalized dress that cannot be replaced. Then you're giving me some information about the item rather than a literal description, because telling me it's a red sundress with polka dots, it's good English, but in the context of this letter, not strictly relevant to travel insurance, if that makes sense. So one thing I always advise candidates to do is when they see this word describe, don't always take it completely literally. And don't just think about what does it look like. Talk about things like, where did you get it? Because that could be relevant to the travel insurance company. And just give information related to its value. Because that's what the travel insurance company is going to do. They're going to be refunding you money, right? So they're interested in things that are going to talk about the value of it. So it has sentimental value. It was a one-of-a-kind original piece. Was personally autographed for me by Louis Vuitton. Those kind of things that would make the travel insurance person think, oh, this is a high-value item that can't be easily replaced and we should refund you. Okay? So what I do appreciate this candidate has done is they have given me 3 good, pretty accurate sentences. They have used this good vocabulary, like we talked about, red sundress, polka dots. We've got a mix of tenses going on here. It's just I have issues with talking about these types of things in the context of a travel insurance letter. So that's my main issue with it. Okay, but let's move on. I should have taken better care since I treasured it so much. Okay, so here, I treasured it so much. I think that's quite a nice phrase. I like the phrase, I treasured it so much. I think that's good. vocabulary. If you wanted to add that into the whole like sentimental value idea, that's also fine. However, on the last day of my trip, I overslept and had to leave the hotel in a hurry. Yeah, this is good. And this, what I like particularly about this sentence is we've got a nice complex sentence here. So we've got our clause, which, how do you know it's a clause? Because you can take it out and the sentence still makes sense. However, I overslept and had to leave the hotel in a hurry. Or we can move it. However, I overslept and had to leave the hotel in a hurry on the last day of my trip. Okay, so this is an example of we've got a complex sentence. So when you look at the marking descriptions for IELTS writing, they want you to have used a mix of simple and complex sentences. Okay, and this is an example of a complex sentence used correctly, grammatically correct. So I think that's very good. Positive. In my haste, I forgot to pack the dress that was hanging in the hotel room closet. When I realized my mistake, I was already on the plane back home. I called the hotel later in the hope to retrieve my lost item, but the hotel staff told me that the dress was nowhere to be found. Okay, so we've got several good things going on here. So first off, in my haste, I think that's a good phrase. It's slightly old-fashioned, the word haste, but in the formal context of this letter, it works well. So I like it. In my haste, that's good. I forgot to pack the dress that was hanging in the hotel room closet. Excellent. When I realized my mistake, I was already on the plane back home. Yep, so you've got another good complex sentence here. I called the hotel later in the hope to retrieve, in the hope of, it should be in the hope of retrieving my lost item. So again, we've got a sort of substitute. Instead of saying dress, they've replaced with item. That's good. But the hotel staff told me that the dress was nowhere to be found. Again, good natural phrase, nowhere to be found. Good phrase. So what's very strong about this is all these sentences just come up pretty accurate. We've got one small mistake, but accurate, good English, a clear narrative. It's easy for me to follow the chain of events. If I'm being very picky, which I often am, I mean, does your travel insurance cover forgetting to pack the dress? I mean, I guess it might do. But this is following exactly what the task has done. So the task is asking you to explain how you lost it. And they've given a very clear sequence of events. They overslept, they forgot to pack the dress, they already called the hotel, but the dress was missing. Okay, so I think that's excellent, no problem. The travel insurance states that it covers the cost of lost items. My dress cost $100. I would like the company to compensate for my clothing. I would like the company to compensate who? Me for my clothing. Okay. Thank you for your service. Faithfully yours, Jenny Young. Okay. So this is a really good way to end a formal letter. Faithfully yours. Excellent. Thank you for your service. I think it's thank you for your service. It has a kind of a slight strange ring to it. Typically in America, this is a phrase, thank you for your service, that is only ever said to people in the army, to soldiers or people who've served in the army. So you'll often hear American people say, oh, are you in the army? Thank you for your service. Or when you get on planes in America, they let the army, people who've served in the army get on the plane first, and they'll say on the plane announcement, thank you for your service. So that's a sort of, that's what it makes me think of in terms of American English. And then in this, to me as a British person, sounds a little bit odd, because thank you for your service, because this would be something you would say after someone has done something for you. Okay, so you might say to someone like, to a waiter after your meal, thank you for your service. Okay, the action has already been completed. You're thanking them for carrying out the service. So the way I usually would end a formal email like this would be to say something like, thank you for your time, or I might say something like, thank you for your service. Any help would be much appreciated. Would be a way I would think. You could say thank you for your time. You could say something like, I'm looking forward to swift resolution of this matter. Okay, you could end it something like that. I think thank you for your service is okay, but in the context, it's usually used after someone has already done something for you. So in this case, you're asking someone for something. So I would typically, I think if it was me, I would sort of choose one of these to end my email. That's kind of like a sort of a small issue. This is good that you're telling them what you want them to do. You've read back your travel insurance. You could say, if you wanted to be more specific, the travel insurance policy states that it covers the cost of lost items. So that the travel insurance is kind of like the general thing, and then the actual paper certificate that you sign is called the policy. So if you'd come back off holiday, you'd lost your address, you would have read back through the paper, the terms and conditions to check. So probably you would naturally say, the travel insurance policy or my insurance policy states that it covers the cost of lost items. My dress costs $100, and I would like the company to compensate for my clothing. So I think that's fine overall. So I think this candidate has done a pretty good job of covering what the question is asking them to do. I think so if we look at the scoring, I particularly think their grammar was really quite strong. We had we had complex sentences. We had a lot of sentences that were grammatically correct. I had very few grammatical corrections to make, and the ones I did were quite minor. So to be honest, for grammar, I would probably giving this candidate maybe like a 7 or even maybe a 7.5. I thought I was quite impressed with their grammar. And the same for their vocabulary. I would probably give them a 7 for their vocabulary as well. They used a lot of appropriate language. They kept a reasonably formal tone. I mean, yes, I have issues with what they're including. Like it's not particularly formal to say that you look beautiful in your dress. But I liked a lot of the very formal language they used. So let me just pick it out. So a lot of the formal language that I liked that they used was, where is it? In my haste. That was pretty good formal language. Nowhere to be found, as I pointed out before. I really liked that. How is it? When I realized my mistake. That's pretty good. The first opening sentence was quite formal. Those kind of things, the faithfully yours, I liked a lot. So I thought they captured the tone with their vocabulary quite well. And they used some less common vocabulary. So we had polka dots, we had sundress, we had in my haste, we had nowhere to be found. So the tone and the vocabulary sounded quite natural. Coherence and cohesion, I would probably mark them down to a 6.5 just because I think we could have had another paragraph. I think each point that the question asks you to cover should really be its own paragraph. I just think that the description of the item and then the events that happened would be better to be split into 2 paragraphs. So that's me being a little bit picky. I think overall it reads quite well, but if I was going to be very specific with this candidate, I would sort of say I would create the paragraph divide here, and I would maybe change that, however, to unfortunately or something like that to sort of start off your new paragraph. So usually if you've got 3 points, 3 items to talk about, you can break that down into 3 paragraphs. That's me being kind of picky about it. I thought their transitions were good, and they covered the information quite naturally. They had a quite natural flow to it. In terms of task achievement, I'm going to be picky and give a 6.5. Or should I give this? I mean, I could be convinced also to go up to a 7. It's just my issue about the describing the item in a travel insurance document and saying you look stunning in the dress, or giving details about the polka dots. So I could see an argument to give this candidate a 7.0 because it's an issue with the language and phrasing of the question. Personally, I would have said you've got to try and get yourself mentally into the context of what you're doing. And if you were really writing to a travel insurance company about a lost item of clothing, it's not relevant to describe what the item looked like. It's relevant to talk about things like you have the original packaging, where you bought it, that you have the receipt still, why the item was of high value, kind of thing. So I could see an argument for task achievement, but overall, maybe I would bump it up, because overall I do want to give this candidate a 7 for this answer. Mainly due, I was very impressed by the confidence of their sentence writing, their grammar, their vocabulary. It felt very well constructed. The person who wrote it had a feeling that they were confident using English. And so I think I would give them an overall 7. And I would just talk to them, when you're getting to these high levels, I would, use this as a chance to discuss with this candidate about, how you really would write a letter to a travel insurance company. And then I would also talk to them a little bit about their paragraphing as well. But overall, I thought this was an excellent example, and I think this candidate wrote a very strong response.